Let me just take 1 minute and introduce Rick Rich. Rick has a colorful background. Started his adult life in the U.S. Army, and originally from Minnesota. And so, thank you for your service. And spent 31 years, 41 years, 51 years,
30.
30 years as a police officer in Vancouver, Washington. Retired 2 years ago, right? So he decided, since he has a pension, to be a full-time woodturner. It's one woodturner quote said, I heard said, if you want to make a small fortune turning wood, start with a large fortune. So that's about right. Anyway, I won't take any of your time. We really look forward to this, and with your charm and inspiration, get people to sign up for tomorrow.
I don't have any charm.
Anyway, here's Rick.
All right. Thank you for having me. And I am from south of here. And tonight we're going to turn lighthouse. So credit where it's due. There's a lady by the name of Rita Duxbury from North Carolina. And her husband is Jim. And in Woodturning magazine, which is in England, but it's an international magazine, she had a lighthouse. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. And there were some different holding methods that were used in her article. And what I found is I can just slap it against a faceplate and turn it between centers. Because I'm a spindle turner, I liked that. And when I have a reject blank, which has too many cracks, it becomes a flower vase, which is this. And amazingly, these things sell. So I don't sell much. There's a little, my neighbor lady has a little gallery boutique-y, not gallery really, it's more boutique-y store. Boutique just means they sell like unique stuff. And so she takes whatever I give her and sells it, gives me a credit, and then my wife goes to the store and buys things on that credit. So that's how that works. I don't actually make money. But I am a production turner, and I do turn some things for production, and I enjoy doing demos. So this is how I supplement my hobby, which is now my full-time work. So we're going to turn, first I'll just show you how easy it is to turn a firewood vase and out of a reject piece for a lighthouse. Then we'll turn a lighthouse. And the lighthouse is pretty simple. It's there's tons of blanks right over there for lighthouses. And after I turn the lighthouse, then we're going to do the Roger and Rick collab. I like that. So a little collaboration, and I will attempt to turn a beautiful spindle out of that. And if I have time after that, then I'm going to turn some tops. I'll just show you how I turn tops. May not be the best method, but it works for me. So I'll show you how I do that. And if I have time after that, I will yield it to the raffle. So, all right. So what I found is there's a place called the Dollar Store where things are now generally $1. And they have this drawer liner. That's what this is. It's a piece of drawer liner. It comes in a roll. It's now $1.25 for the roll. I purchased this back when it was actually $1. So it's been a while. So what I found is I cut this. By the way, this is 4-inch or 5 inches because my lighthouses are 10 inches. So when my lighthouse blank has cracks in it, it gets cut in half. And the half that doesn't have cracks becomes a vase. And if my piece of firewood doesn't have cracks, it becomes a lighthouse. So that's how I determine it. Pretty easy. So I put this up here, and I've drilled a hole. I've got a 5/8 hole. I use an auger bit, and I just clamp it with a hand clamp and put a hold fast on my bench and hold it down with a straight edge, and I just hand drill it. So not a lot of science. I don't use a pillar drill or a drill press. And I just find center by loosely doing that, making sure it's seated, and then give it some love here. I didn't ask for help. I didn't twist it super hard. I just want it to hold. And so this is a robust, so we're just going to kind of hope that it holds. That was my dig at robust, by the way. That's just because it's fun to dig very expensive lathes. I have a jet at home. It's a 1640, and because I need the bed length, and so I got a hold of I want a one-way, but the one-way bed is also kind of short, and then it'd require an extension, and I think extensions are ugly, and I like walking in my shop and seeing a beautiful lathe. So, and the price is really high, but the one-way is a very good lathe also. So to turn this on, I flip the switch here. It begins to rotate. And I always wear, can you still hear me? Okay, so I always wear a face shield because I don't like things hitting me in the face. So I'm going to turn it up on my dial here. It's a number 5. So whatever that is, I have no idea. And I'm going to use a roughing gouge. And I'm just going to start nibbling away at this wood. And I don't want to fight the wood. I just want it to come off in nice, easy curls. And I'm going to press down pretty hard on my tool rest so that I don't get chatter marks. Because the danger is getting chatter marks right in there. So, take my skew, and now I'm going to clean up this top. Can you see that? So I don't want to go so far that I hit my center right there, and then I add that. So let's take a look. Turn it off, turn it down, and I've got some marks right there. So turn it on, turn it up. If you get chatter marks sometimes, it can help to slow down your speed. So the only thing that this has to do differently is I'm going to have to go right to there. Okay. There we go. So then what I do at home is I set this down and I grab another one. I put it on my lathe like this. And I tighten it up. I turn on my lathe and I turn another one. And one more cut. There we go. Grab my skew. And then I usually have a whole bunch of them, and that's what I do. So that's done. I wouldn't put water in it, but you could. You would be unhappy if you did. I just call them flower pots. Are you an engineer by any chance? Okay. All right. So I enjoy engineers in the audience. I'm pretty black and white. All right, I come out of the Army, I was in the police, and things are like this, but then you get an engineer. And yeah, things really become black and white. You can hand these out if you want. That is maple. Maple, my firewood is typically maple. That's what I'll select the maple out of there. You can do this with, well, any wood. But cherry and alder, if I turn green cherry and alder, then I tend to break out. So there's something in the wood that doesn't agree with me, so I avoid it. But maple doesn't do that to me. So you notice I use the cone center for those, and that's just because there's a drilled hole in it. So I don't need my cone center anymore, so I'll put it over there. This is my lighthouse blank. As you can see, it's a piece of firewood, and it used to be 16 inches. And what I do is I cut it down to 10, so 16 minus 10 equals 4, 6. All right, where's my engineers? So I cut off 3 inches off each end. Does that make sense? That's all this is I split the firewood. I grabbed one that had the least amount of checks, and I'm like, oh, this will be good for a lighthouse, so I fling it in a pile. And then I just cut it off on the bandsaw. So I find kind of a flat, and I run it across the bandsaw, and then my fence is set at 10 inches, and I run it that way. That's all I've done to this. That's the processing that I do. So I take this. This is done a little bit differently. So the way that I do this is I want it somewhat even. So I just feel with my fingers using the outside of my faceplate, and I kind of center it best I can. I make sure this is nice and tight, and then I drive this into it. And again, just so it seats nice and tight against here. I found it's pretty safe. I say pretty safe. Wear a face shield. And you notice that it's going to be off balance. So I'm going to be turning this pretty slow because I want to get this thing somewhat balanced, because the end result is going to be like this. You see that? So I've got about a 1/4 inch extra here. And so this part will be balanced. This part then has the texture to where it's like a rocky cliff or something. So it's a lighthouse sitting upon a cliff. So I set my tool rest. My tool rest is slightly above center. And I'm just going to keep sneaking it up until it just hits, and then I'll sneak it back just a little bit. So my goal now is with my spindle roughing gouge is I'm going to take, I'm going to take this out here so that way it's pretty balanced. So has anyone ever made something like this before? Out of just chunks of firewood? Have you ever made something out of firewood? Yeah, it's kind of fun, isn't it? Yeah, because what's the failure means what? Yeah, it's firewood. Yes. Yep, it's smaller firewood. All right. So you'll notice that this is it's not actually a spindle roughing gouge, it's a continental gouge. And the reason I like it is because the handle is short. So what I find in spindle turning and bowl turning is turners don't like to move, especially out of the way of their handle. So I find with a shorter handle, it's easier for me, like here, if I needed to move this way, I can just kind of suck in my gut a little bit. And it's not like I've got this monstrosity handle getting in my way. The spindle roughing gouge from Robert Sorby is actually 2 inches longer, and it just annoys me. It's too long. So all my handles, if you looked at my tools, all my handles are there, I believe, 10 inch. Let's see. So that's 6. Yep. So they're 10 inches. So that's just personal preference on my end. Make sure this is turned all the way down. So I'm at 2, which is probably going to be fast enough. We'll see if I can get a cut. When I start my cut, this is a 30-degree grind. I use a platform and just roll it on the platform, or 35, I'm sorry, because I use a Raptor setup tool. I have a one-way setup on my grinder. So here I want to have my handle low because I want to rub my bevel, and then as soon as that cutting edge engages, then I'm going to start moving my tool. So there I'm rubbing my bevel. There's my cut. And this is ridiculously slow. There we go. Because if I come in at 90 degrees like a pool cue, I'm just going to scrape, and then pretty soon I'll have a very dull edge. So I may as well just go to the kitchen and grab a butter knife at that point, because that's going to be the effective result of it. So here I just want to make really light cuts, because if I stick this thing in and make a very heavy cut, the likelihood of it grabbing the wood and the wood exiting suddenly becomes much higher. So I just go back and forth until it starts becoming more balanced. So here I can see I'm out of my cut, I'm in my cut. As soon as I'm in my cut, I need to be moving. And I'll just start working my way back. And this wood is, I think it got dumped off at the house sometime probably January or February. And it got split, and it's just been sitting. So I look at it, and you notice I'm tapering down towards the tailstock. That's because I keep coming back here, and this is very similar to the cut on the on that flower vase, or I'm sorry, dried twig vase, because I'm just making that same cut in. And you can go back and forth on these. And I want to leave that about 2 inches. And if you got flyers like this, it's just that stuff. So what do we think? Is that's probably acceptable? This way. It's taking me a little bit to get used to this, so bear with me. All right, so now I'm going to make a cut in. And I just want to clean up this little shoulder right here with the important tool. So with my skew, I need to make that little walkway at the bottom. So this is half of a V-cut. And if you notice, he said I could zoom in. Okay, I'm going to try to zoom in. Can you see the point of my skew? No. Can you scoot that thing this way? Right there. Can you? There we go. Yep, this way. There you go. Okay, can you see the point of my skew? See? Okay. Can you see the cutting edge, the sharp part? So the point is going to do the cutting. The cutting edge is going to stay away, and I'm just going to hinge into the wood. If I did that correctly, I will have clean end grain cut. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see the clean end grain cut? No, you can't, because it's straight up and down. Oh. Ooh, they switched views on me. All right. Okay, so you can see the clean end grain cut. That is because this cut here requires this edge here, the bottom of the ground portion, aims your cut. Just like in bowl turning, the bevel aims your cut. Where that bevel is pointing, that is where your cut will be if you want bevel support. True? Bowl turners? Nodding? Yes, see? So it is no different with the skew. This aims my cut, but this cutting edge here must be tilted away, because can you imagine the tragedy that would happen if I introduce my cutting edge to that large shoulder of wood, right? I would be sad. You guys would laugh because I would have a catch of magnitude. So this cut, the old books, which camera am I on? This one. See it? This is worth getting on eBay. These are like $5. The original from 1907 is 100, but you can't get it because I bought it. 1907. One of the best books I've ever seen on learning how to spindle turn. It's got faceplate stuff in there, but back in the day, everything was scraper. The bowl gouge hadn't been invented yet. So Peter Child, I believe, is the one that came with the long and strong bowl gouge. Okay, so now I've got my little walkway where the lighthouse keeper, right? He's going to walk around while he needs a door. So we're going to give him a door if I can figure out how to turn this on. All right, so I turn the speed up to 3. So here, anchor, bevel, and then there's my cut. So you notice I'm cutting. I start my cut here with my little short point, and then it rides up very slightly because I'm going to get a cleaner cut if I come off the point. If I'm just on the point, it can furrow the wood up and you can make those Christmas trees. But if I start there, then I can ride it up and then come all the way to there. When I get to the bottom here, I got to kind of drop my handle a little bit because I want to go back to just the point. Turn off. There we go. So I can't trust which one we're on. Can you go to this one? This is a nice clean surface. So, and it took me, 2 cuts? That's the power of the skew, right? Okay, so now I need to work on this end because once I get it's called a cupola. Did you know that? The part where the light is? That's the cupola or cupola. I call it a cupola because somebody made fun of me when I called it a cupola. So it became a cupola. I don't know the actual way to say it. But I do know it houses the light. So I need to work on that because I got that little walkway up here because he's got to change the light bulbs, right? So he's got to walk around to be able to change the light bulbs. So, but underneath that little walkway is where this taper will be. So that means I got to do this before I can do this. Pretty simple, right? So to make the cupola, I'm going to take my parting tool and I'm going to go right about here. Every time is a guess. I'm not measuring, engineers in the room. I'm just kind of guessing, and I've become fairly consistent over the probably 1.5 2 years that I've been making these. So, and that's just guessing. So feel free to guess. If you don't like it, burn it and then grab another one. But don't, oh, by the way, don't turn it super green. Because if it's green and it's throwing water on you, and you want to turn this little ball at the end, which I forgot, somebody told me what the function of it was, but if you Google lighthouse images, they have, most of them have this little ball on the top. And somebody told me what it was for, but I forgot. But anyway, I put one on there. And when you come down to here, if your wood is super green, it's not super strong. And we'll just say that the chance of it exiting becomes higher. All right. On. Turn the speed up a little bit. And so this is the bottom of my roof, which would be commonly called a soffit. This is the length of the lenses or the cupola. This, I will darken it so you can see what I'm talking about. This is the walkway. So now that I've identified that, I can clean that up. But Rick is a safe turner. So he's going to take the opportunity, which has presented itself, to move his tool rest closer. Because if it's closer, the chances of chatter are less because I have less tool overhang. And I really don't want to give this to Roger's wife as a thank you for hosting me. Not Roger, Roger's wife, and have chatter marks on there. So, if you have the chance to move your tool rest closer, for the most part, I take it. Always rotate by hand to make sure that you're going to clear. And then, try to remember how to turn on a robust. There we go. So now, what I can do is I can start my taper cuts. So on a taper cut, it's starting with the very short point and just working my way up the blade a little bit. How do I do that? I angle my tool ever so slightly. There we go. And if I angle it one way, I'll show you, I can get a bead. So that's angling it one way. Angling it the other way just pulls me out of the cut. So, and typically I want to be looking here, what we call the horizon. So I'm going to start here, work my way down, and then give it a little defining little V cut right there. And now I can come in here, clean that off, and now what I'm going to do is, are we on the up and down here? Can you see the tip, the long point? What's that? Zoom out. All right, you can see the long point. So I hinged the tool into the wood. All I did was hinge the tool, cutting with only the point, aiming with the bottom of the ground portion. Show you one more time. Notice my cutting edge is slightly angled away. There's my cut. Now I got to come in here because I went a little deeper. Turn off. There we go. All right, so I have clean end grain. This cut, says the old books, is the most difficult to make, but the easiest to do once you learn it. The bead is the most difficult to learn, says the old books. And I found that actually to be true. All right, so enough chit-chat about that. I'm going to clean up my cupola and mark it for drilling. So, my 3/4 inch skew is too big. I need a smaller one. So I'm moving to my 1/2 inch skew to clean out this mess right here. I have to clean out this mess in order to mark my drilling points and drill my holes for the lights. So that's pretty easy. I just turn the robust on, and I'm going to angle my skew so I can do an angled peeling cut. And the reason I'm angling my peeling cuts is because I don't want to take the entire blade and introduce the entire blade. Because if I do, that's a lot of pressure and force. So I can eliminate that just by angling my skew. And you notice how with my short handle, I was able to do that without a whole lot of movement back and forth. So now I've got this. I'm going to clean that up. I'm going to come in. My cut's going to start. See where it started? Right here. Any idea what might happen if I let the cut right up to here? Yeah, of course I will. Physics says I will. Solution, don't let it ride up. As soon as it starts to cut, move it. And then come in this way. Do the same thing. So all I want is this a little bit flat so that I can do this. I can guess my midpoint. And I can remember how to turn this thing off. All right, so I've got my midpoint. I've got 2 flats on this faceplate, and I've got 2 grub screws. So I can guess the middle of the flat and the middle of this and go like that. What am I hitting on? And then I take my grub screw, guess the middle, guess the middle, and guess the middle. There are my drilling points. I have spared no expense. I have a spade bit, and it's a good one. It's the Speed Bore. You can buy these at Lowe's, and they cost, I think, $1, maybe $2. They might even be $3 if you get ripped off. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this steady. I'm going to put this right on the corner, and I'm going to brace this against my shoulder. The reason I'm bracing it is because when I get to holes 2, 3, and 4, when I start getting deeper, it's going to be going, and then it'll kind of burst through. So I found if I brace like this, and oh, by the way, I have to guess where the middle is. So we'll see. And I go about halfway. And then I do it again. Did you see that? Where it wanted to kind of jump forward? Because I was pushing on it, and then it all the resistance was gone. There we go. And last one. Okay. Not bad, huh? So you notice how ugly and nasty that is, and there's still a pencil line? Fear not, Greg. I'm going to get it, okay? And I'm going to continue using this, because I can get in here and I can make nice planing cuts. But before I do that, I want to clean up this nastiness right here. There we go. So if I'm going to start cutting here, I don't want to just jam the tool in. I want to gauge kind of where this short point is going to go in, so I don't go too deep. Because if I go too deep, I'm just going to pull up the wood fibers. But what I want is I want a nice surface, nice and clean. So we'll call that nice and clean, all right, Greg? So Greg is my new friend. Giovanni is my other friend. And then there's a designer over here whose name I forgot. Steve. All right. Okay, so anchor, bevel, let the cut start, and then I want a cupola, by the way, is the light, and we know that lights do this number. So I'm going to have a very shallow bead here. So this side is done. So I'm going to come down to the bottom and then do this side. Remember I said that side was done? It isn't, because I didn't have symmetry, and I like symmetry. All right, so here I need to clean up this mess. And come in here with just my little short point. I'm not super happy with the non-symmetry. I'm going to come back and just make one more. Let's take a look at that. All right. Not bad, right? Okay, so the cupola is done, Greg. You know what's next? The soffit. So the roof, the side of the roof where the gutter is. That needs to be cleaned up, because right now it's all rough from the roughing gouge. So I'm always safe to go off the end. I'm not safe to come from the end in, E-N-D-I-N. Because if I come from the end and go in, I can ruffle up all that wood. So it's easier for me just to go that way and clean that up. In case you're wondering, Greg, it actually is clean, and that was one little cut, right? That simple. So now I need to make, we'll just call this a radar. Does anyone know what the function of this thing is? A who? It's a ventilation pipe. Duh, everybody knows that, right? So to make the whirly bird, is that what it's called? Okay. Anyway, I know it's going to be right in here, so I'm going to peel cut the waste away. And I'm not going to go like super hard on this. I'm just peel cutting. This is not a pool cue. It is a rotary cutter. Has anyone ever seen the apples where you rotary cut? That's what this is doing. All right, so now the roof itself, which is a V cut, and all I'm doing is trying to make these kind of similar. And then finish a V cut in here. I don't want to go too deep, so that looks about right. And then my whirly bird is never like a full ball. It's kind of a squashed ball. I think it actually looks better that way, and it's easier to make. So why not, right? So really all it is a bead. It goes all the way down that way. And then it's a bead that goes all the way down that way. That's a little more squashed than I like. There we go. So now, you may be asking yourself, why don't I just part it off on the lathe? Because I don't feel like doing that. And it could be dangerous. So, don't be dangerous. Take it off. Get your Japanese pole saw. Isn't that cool? 18 bucks, Amazon. And so what I found is that these actually sell mainly at Christmas time. And there you go. And they take roughly 10 minutes to make if you're not blabbing and talking to Greg and having a conversation with Steve. They don't take long. They're a blast. There's, 20 or 30 of them over there. And all you got to do is make sure it fits on the faceplate. If you take a little spindly, tiny piece of wood and you think that you're going to safely do this, well, you may be in for a surprise, because I wouldn't do that. So make sure it fits. The reason for that liner, that drawer liner that's a little bit squishy, is it takes any variance out of the equation. So when you're doing the math, engineers, you'll find that that now all of a sudden your like hypercritical calculus doesn't really matter. All right, so what we're going to do now is make a spindle. Oh, any questions that I could answer on that? Any comments? Any complaints? Do I put a finish? No, sir, I do not. Have I thought of putting lights? No, that's too much work. These, I think my wife spends like 24 bucks of credit on each one of these that sell. Or maybe that's the retail and I get the wholesale. I have no idea. All I know is she'll come back from that store with like stuff that eventually goes to Goodwill. Then she goes there and buys it. All right. No, she's usually out gardening, and then she accepts the chips. All right, so Roger spared no expense. He gave me the original 4-prong drive here, and the original robust brand live center that was used to turn the tenons. And even I can tell which end goes where. So we'll just mount this thing up right here and bring this up. Remember, it goes backwards because they're in Wisconsin. All right. Lock it in. Angle. So on a spindle, on a square spindle, typically your tool rest is going to be center or slightly above for spindle work. Any idea why, Greg? They would call on people. Greg's paying no attention, so I'll answer it for Greg. It really doesn't matter. The key element of the tool rest is the comfort of the operator being the wood turner. Did you know that? That the height of the tool rest is for your comfort in turning. However, if you're going to be scraping, obviously it needs to be higher because you need to be at that more raking angle. When you're cutting a cylinder or spindle work, if you're slightly above center, it helps you, because my cutting is typically, if I had a analog clock, did you know that there's kids nowadays that have no idea what a real clock is? Because they look at that thing back there and they see numbers, right? We look at a real clock, which ain't in here. I don't even have one. Anyway, if you had a real clock and this was 12 o'clock, this would be 3, 6, and 9. So you can take your arris, this is by the way called an arris, it's the corner of the wood, and you set that at top dead center, so 12 o'clock. Then I can set my tool rest height slightly above center. My cutting is typically going to be right around 10:30, 11 o'clock. That is going to be my optimum cutting for spindle work. So that's where I'm going to set it. Let's see. Can we go to this one here? Are we on? Yep. All right. I'll even turn it around to make it. Oh, sweet. So this design right here is what I'm aiming for. You see that? That's what I hope this to be when I'm done. So I made a story stick, and this I wrote top on, so I know which end is on the top. And I put a little mark for my tenon. So this is going to be a bead. This is the shallowest portion. That's going to be roughly 1/2 inch. This is full size. And then I'm going to go down to a 1/2 inch cove here, and an 1.25 inch bead and an 1.5 inch bead, which requires me to actually have remembered to bring out my calipers, which, have no fear, I have. Right here. So I'll use this to make sure I achieve design consistency. All right, so first thing I have to do is I have to turn it round. So make sure everything is locked down. It is. Face shield down, check. Turn on. I'm rolling at 8, Greg. Whatever that is in robust speak, I have no idea, but it's number 8. 3,000? I'm guessing about 26. So I'm just going to work my way back. I'm not real sure what kind of wood Roger gave me here. He knows, but he may not be saying. So back and forth I go. And when I wonder if it's round, I can do this, and it's not yet. So I'm using my finger as a guide, as a depth guide, because this part is really where I want to get that full diameter. All right. So now, got my story stick, and we're going to go like this. Give myself a bead. That's going to be the center of my bead. Go. That little thing is going to be a very, very small fillet, just to define the bead. That's it. You can tell I got to modulate my voice more because I got to watch when guys are going to sleep on me. That's going to be the bottom of my cove. This is full size. Here is this bead, cove, fillet, and bottom bead. I may have to refer to this to remember what all those lines mean. Once you start making a few, it gets a lot easier. So I've decided that this bead will be 1.25 inches. So set these at 1.25 inches, and I usually will go a little bit over. So that way when I'm doing my finishing cuts, I don't take them all down. So I'm going to put, these are rounded by the way, so I've rounded them on my grinder. So it's not a really big bead. So I'm just going to go just the bead, and then I want to define my bead. So before I turn the bead, it's going to be, this wood will be in the way. So I'm going to start bringing this down some. That's going to be my cove. It's going to be pretty small. So I think I'm going to use my parting tool. Come in here. I'm going to wiggle my parting tool and then create a little extra space. Wiggle it to where it's smaller than that, because that way it's out of the way. I'll size it in just a moment. So I know that I can get rid of this wood here. So now I can turn my bead. Get that out of the way. So this needs a little shoulder to rest against the, where the top comes, it has to rest against that. So I don't want to turn it all the way down. And this, I'll just turn down a little bit right there. Now I'm going to make a cove. The proper tool for a cove is a spindle gouge. So I'm just going to come in here and start turning it down. And as long as I introduce my flute at 90 degrees, it's not going to want to skate on me. If I introduce it like this, that's what happens. It just skates. That's physics. Of course it will skate. You would skate too if you were that spindle gouge. All right, so now that little fillet can be cleaned up. Let me get rid of a little bit more wood here so I can get my skew in, and just that little bit right there. So there's my fillet. It defines the bead. So now I'm going to come here, and I got a little bit of chatter, so I'm going to lighten up my touch. If you're getting chatter, lighten up. Put the weight on the tool rest. That's what it's for. Here, I'm going to come this way. This is less important on this side because I'm eventually going to be coming up from here and OGE into that. Does that make sense? I'll show you. Two options. I can take the rough and gouge option. Let me look at my picture. All right. It's always important to just pump the brakes a little bit. Make sure that you're doing the right design. Because can you imagine how upset Roger will be if this doesn't turn out nice? So I want to point your attention to the fact that, Greg, if you'd be so kind, does this look smooth and clean? Oh, let me show you what this tool can do. If I can turn this on. There we go. All right. So I need it to come in and sweep. So notice I can move myself without hitting that. I can move myself this way because I want to end up here. So I'm going to move myself like that. Anchor bevel. And if I'm cutting too hard, it'll chatter on me. So I need to start eliminating wood. There we go. I angle my tool for the cut that I want. I'm going to have to come back again because I'm taking off too much meat here for that last clean cut. And if I start getting chatter, I can come over like this. And I'm just eyeballing the horizon right to there. Yeah, that's a little bit off. Let's fix that. There we go. Yeah, we'll see. So now I'm going to come down here. Let's try to remember what I'm doing here. This is a 1/4 inch, 1 1/4. So I think I'm going to fix this. I am dissatisfied with this this shape. So I want it a little more bulbousy here. And then come into the neck, and the neck is just going to be a big old giraffe. And I'm just going to hold it steady with my hand. Think about lightness. I'm thinking of light, airy things right now so that I'm just pushing nice and light on there. So a little bit better. I've got a little bit of roughness right there that I can feel. I'm going to come in here, anchor bevel. There's my cut. As soon as that starts to cut, you got to start moving your tool, because if you don't, then your cut just keeps going down. So light, airy thoughts. Right here. Okay, so now this is 1 1/4 inches. Let's just make sure here I know what I'm doing. Okay, so it's that center line, as in center to me, right here. So if I wiggle it back and forth as I'm arcing it in, the wiggling creates that little bit of room, a little bit of clearance, and then the arcing gives me the cut. All right, so now I know that this line here is the bottom of the V cut. So I'm just going to start coming in. Right there. So I want this V cut. That's going to be the bottom of the bulb and the bottom of that bead right there, if you can see that right there. Does that make sense, Greg? You seeing it? Can you visualize it? Good. So I'm not sure if I can right now. There we go. All right, so this is simply a bead shape down to there. Let's go one more here. On this cut, you really got to watch your horizon. Don't watch your tool. If you watch your tool, you're just going to be sad. All right, so now I'm going to size this 1.5 inch bead, because if I go, I can't get into my bead this way, and this way I'm going to be fighting all that wood. So I want to take that wood out of there. So I'm going to set this at 1.5 inches. Right there. My parting tool. There we go. There it is. All right, so I know I got to fill it below that one. So I can get rid of this. Get rid of this down to, is it this line? Ooh, that's why we have a story stick. So my fillet is still this proud area. So that's going to be the size of my fillet. This can come down. I can move my foot somewhere around here. And then I'm going to turn this little bead right here. By the way, Greg, if I get a catch, it's the real thing, buddy. I ain't trying to. Because if I got a catch, it's because I did something wrong. So this bead is also going to be somewhat shallow because it's going to rest on the base. So now my fillet there has been identified. And that's going to be a cove. So my cove, I'm going to mimic that size right there. And I'm going to remember the size of this. I'm just going to throw this back up here, right there. So that's the center of my cove, that line. So this is my bead. And we're going to come in like Flynn. Here, make it nice and clean. Clean it up. That's a little thick. You guys would look at it and you'd say, he said he was going to mimic that and he didn't. And I would have to cry that you are correct. But now I can say that I did. This is kind of ugly right here. Let me clean that up. There we go. All right. Oops. Never say oops in a demo, but I did. You know why I said oops, Greg? How about you, ma'am? Anna, do you know why I said oops? Do you know why I said oops? I said oops, and then I had, because when I was coming down here, I went too far and allowed my side of my gouge to scrape, causing some ugliness. I don't want that ugliness. So I had to go back and clean it up. That's why I said oops. All right, so now let's go back here. Let's clean up Mr. Fillet here. And now we're going to roll Mr. Bead. Roll Mr. Bead. I said roll Mr. Bead. There we go. Whoa. That was Rick pushing a little bit too hard. So here, I'm going to roll the bead all the way into my cove. And instead of sticking my short point in there, by golly, let's use this and just clean it out like that, because there's no reason to risk a catastrophe. Let's see what this looks like. Let's see, this was the base side, and this was this side. What do we think? Does it look a little better? Is that okay? What's that? What do you think from a design perspective? Did I achieve kind of the look? If I had an extra ½ inch of girth here, I think I would have achieved it a little bit better, because this is kind of tall. What do you think? Remember, I was going for below the cup and then above the base. Seriously, nods or shaky shake? Nods? How about you, ma'am? Ah, okay. All right. So Tops. Oh, here you go. Anyone? All right. Tops. 2001. Still got a couple minutes? Or do you want me to yield my time? Oh, I will turn tops very slowly then. All right. So on a robust lathe, to get rid of this, you find a large rod. Here we go. Is this the one that seriously came with it? That's kind of cool if it did. All right. So when I turn tops, I use a chuck. I find it's the easiest way. And I put that there. I put this scary sharp thing away. And this is alder. So I always use softwoods. If you want to punish yourself and you are mad at yourself and you want to make sure that you are feeling all kinds of bent out of shape, turn hard maple into a top. If you want to enjoy yourself, use soft wood. So in this case, it is alder. And this is how we turn tops. We turn at the Clark County Fair. And we found that if we all use soft woods, we don't have, and the consistent sizes. So this is 4 inches long, 1.5 by 1.5 inches. And the reason that we use that is because if we use the larger blanks and hard maple blanks, what happens is they self-eject when someone jams their bowl gouge. And why they brought a bowl gouge to a spindle turning event is beyond me, but they do. And they jam that thing in, and then it launches, well, it goes here, and then it almost takes out a little group of girls. So that's why our club has switched to small top blocks. All right, so here's how I turn the skew, or turn the top, is I'm all ready here. I'm going to peel cut and then turn it into a planing cut. Then just a little push cut here just to peel away and make kind of a rough shape. And then clean it up. Then come in here. If you want to learn how to use the skew, this is one of the better methods because you're learning V-cuts and you're learning planing cuts, you're learning peeling cuts. And a peeling cut is a rotary peeler. And you notice I'm not going straight in, I'm coming at an angle. And the reason I went down here is so that I can provide clearance for my tool to go in here. And the reason I want to go in here is to get my neck size down to roughly 1/4 inch. And then if it rides up, I can just clean it. Then this can ride against there. It tells me that's as far that way as I can go. Anchor, bevel, and then I can come down. Let me clean that up here real quick. As long as I got a light touch right here, I can turn with a lot of confidence because then it's just a matter of the stem itself. Spindle steady, come in this way, and I'm just pushing it with my thumb, supporting it with my finger, and then when I'm done, I just roll a bead and I have a top. And it works, and they're fun, and you don't need a lot of tools. I'll turn one more because I brought 2 blanks, so I might as well. Unless you don't want me to. Want me to turn one more? Okay, I promise I'll donate them. You guys got like a box over there. So you can have those two and this one. This used to be part of the button that goes underneath the large stool there. All right. So to show you again how I turn a top is I peel cut and get rid of waste wood. I come in with a planing cut. I peel it down into shape, and then I make my point. If I don't like my point, it's just a matter of making another one. And then I come in with a little V-cut here, a whole bunch of V-cuts this way. Don't get in too big of a rush here, because if you do, your V-cut can become a V-catch very, very quickly. And then you notice I'm flipping my tool back and forth so that it's most effective for me. And then come in here. If I get that, let me try to make that chatter sound. Let me try to make, okay. Well, anyway, you get a chatter sound when you're pushing too hard. There we go. Kind of a chatter there. And then I always flip it around because I have to have, I can't just turn this. I mean, I can, but it'll take me all day to turn that light. So it's easier just to do that. Ooh, so close. Now you can spin these tops, by the way, this way. Let me show you here. Do you see that? So they're multi-directional. Oops, it keeps bouncing into that. So those, I enjoy turning tops. I've turned thousands of them. And if you want to learn the skew, turn tops. Once you learn your V-cuts, you have to learn your V-cuts, and there's no better way to learn than turn a bunch of tops. Because you know when you screwed up a V-cut. Yeah. So whatever you did wrong, which was, by the way, introduce your cutting edge, right? Remember, V-cuts are made with the point and the point only. Just the point. I'll show you. Just the point. So V-cut is just angling it. So let's take a look at the surface condition between the two. Greg doesn't believe me. There you go, Greg. I'm out of wood. So, before your round of applause, I am done, but I like to seriously solicit questions because I have 1 minute. Just kidding. The radius on my skew. Question is, what is the radius on my skew? The answer is, I'm not super sure. It's that. Can you see that? So it's probably less than 70 just because it's kind of migrated up. If you buy a D-Way, who owns D-Way tools? Love D-Way. Did you know they're making a custom skew just for me? Yes. You can ask them for it, but here's what the custom skew will look like. This size right here, except they're steel. I love Robert Sorby. This size here is 19 millimeter, which is, by the way, even though they claim it's 3/4, it ain't. It's a 16th, almost a 16th less in height. And then this way, it's 1/32nd, maybe a 64th less than a 1/4 inch. I like it that little bit smaller because I can get it into those tighter places. If you buy a D-Way skew, it's fairly thick, but it still works. Their steel is absolutely phenomenal. Anyway, if you buy one of those, they when they sharpen it, they really radius it. And that, you can turn beads almost a little bit easier with that radius. But I really like this for planing cuts. So just a slight radius. What it is, seriously, I have no idea. All I know is it's not a lot and it's not a little. The other question that he had was, what is my grind angle? Answer, I have no idea. It is close to 20 degrees or whatever the included angle. I don't understand included angles. All I know is we measured it with one of those little things that measure, and it was 20. So, any other questions? Oh, I'm supposed to hit up the lighthouse class. So this is my big pitch. I'm going to be there. So, that's all I got.